This is the Rich Lieberman Media Pulse. We are live here on YouTube. It is Thursday. I don't have to tell you, folks, there's a lot going on in the news. We had this very, very tragic air crash collision on Wednesday evening in Washington, D.C., involving a commercial aircraft that was hit by a military helicopter, resulting in 70 people losing their life. And I was home on my computer doing various things when the flash on my screen came across. And my first instinct, as always, is to turn on CNN. Not because I have some sort of bias towards CNN. I have always stated that when it comes to breaking news, especially something as tragic like this, an air crash, CNN is right there, especially in Washington, D.C., where they have a full-time bureau and they have reporters, et cetera, et cetera. So I put on CNN, and immediately they have the bulletin, the scroll, they have pictures, and most importantly, eventually, they have a video that they ran that was taken off a social media site, but nevertheless, they have a video. What impresses me about CNN is the fact that Laura Coates, who is normally a host, a legal person, had to play reporter. And she was there with Brian Ross, and they were at a vantage point where they could give you complete, comprehensive coverage. They actually had reporters did CNN on the scene. Admittedly, Laura Coates is not a general assignment reporter, but she was there. And I skimmed around, put on Fox, and all Fox was doing was taking a local reporter and relying on them. Not bad, but not comprehensive. MSNBC, same thing. They're taking a feed from the local station in Washington. And what impressed me again about CNN is the fact that, first of all, Laura Coates is fantastic, as was this Brian Ross guy. They were able to gather information. They had the initial visuals. You could see what was taking place. They also had an early feed of what was going to be a more thorough, information-laden press conference. So CNN, in my book, aced it. That doesn't mean I love CNN for their other coverage, but when it comes to breaking news, particularly a situation where, look, folks, it's 9 o'clock almost on a weekday night, very cold, murky waters, challenges all over across the board. CNN was there, and I'll give them credit. And personnel that you would normally think would be adept right away, they were very comprehensive, very thorough. I give CNN a very strong A. So I'm going to talk about that. I'm also going to talk about local coverage. And it was quite ridiculous. I'm being very diplomatic. So let's just start with the obvious. Most of the TV stations in the Bay Area took network breaking news. That's fine. Didn't expect anything else. Of course not. We're not based in Washington. We're based in the Bay Area. They took the network feed. We had the breaking news from the various networks. We get that. Okay. I switched to radio. I wanted to see what they call themselves, they being KCBS, the alleged local news radio station, who have multiple promos proclaiming themselves as, I'm quoting, we're the Bay Area's news station. Not we're the Bay Area news radio, even though they are. No, we're the Bay Area's news leader. When breaking news happens, this is KCBS's proclamation. We will give you news nonstop. Well, guess what? They brought the breaking news salvo in, but after that, clumsy at best. Just for the record, who was working on Wednesday night when this broke? Around 9 o'clock our time. Alicia Clancy. Now I'm going to give Alicia Clancy a pass because she can only do what she does. That's why you have editors who man the wires, who man their various media, social media, who inevitably see that we have breaking news, which we did. They're supposed to do what their job is. Tell the anchor, we just have news out of Washington, D.C. There's been a plane crash, a collision. It looks bad. There's a fireball, etc., etc., etc. KCBS and Alicia Clancy had faulty coverage. Again, not her fault. Instead of, while realizing the gravity of this situation, going directly to the station in DC and taking the feed, or the feed from CBS News, which they could have done, they just gave a quick bulletin and they went on with their repetitive story after story after nothing story after nothing story locally, and continued on that track. The only time KCBS left the local idiot stories was to go to the news updates at 20 past the hour and 30 past the hour. It was really inadequate. We all wanted news. Now, fortunately, most of us have alternative news sites. We have television, we have the internet. God forbid you only have radio, because if that's the case, you were sorely lacking on KCBS with regards to this immense tragedy taking place in Washington. But wait, it got worse. At 10 o'clock, midnight, very underprepared, inadequate Mary Hughes is a joke, a disaster. She's not ready for prime time. How you could keep putting this woman on the air, I don't care if she's a woman, a guy, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, what have you. She's not qualified. And she's ill prepared for ad-libbing or doing anything out of the ordinary, like covering a national news story. Should have been the call from somebody high atop at KCBS to go to the national feed, whether it's CBS, whether it's CNN, whomever, anybody you carry. This was a big story, a huge story. We haven't had an airline crash of this magnitude for almost 3 decades. It's a big story. There's loss of life. There's visual. And yet, what did KCBS do, folks? They carried on with their idiot stories that nobody gives a damn about, because nothing was taking place in the Bay Area. They ran traffic even when there was no traffic, and weather when we've heard the fact 50,000 times that it's going to rain on Friday. And even sports reports. And yes, of course, the 75 million commercials that they run. Fine, do your commercials. It was absolutely ridiculous and professionally incompetent that KCBS did not go to the CBS feed or whatever feed that was there. Whose responsibility is that? It's the editor, the so-called women, men, whomever's working at the editor's desk. You're seeing what's happening. We have a national, hell, international news stories. Yet they continued on as if it was just something that the network would cover at 30 past the hour and a designated 20 past the hour. KCBS, I would remind again everybody who watches this, is incompetent. They have no news acumen. They have zero news legitimacy. They have rookies at best covering news stories where people who call themselves editors should be manning the wires and looking for this story like this that happened Wednesday night are instead checking their Facebooks and their Instagrams and Threads and Blue Skies and whatever. If you rely on KCBS, you are in dire straits. That's all I'm going to say. It is so pathetic. And the people, the so-called news director, who is incompetent, she doesn't know how to cover news. She should be fired. I don't know how more emphatic I could say it, but I just did.